Hello again, and welcome back to week 35 of year 4 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 3. We're continuing through the Gospel of John, chapter 19, and into chapter 20. Last time we saw Jesus die on the cross, giving up his spirit willingly, and we saw his side pierced by the soldiers who came to ensure that those who were crucified were dead before the sun set, so that they could be buried and would not remain on the cross during the holy day of Passover. We noted, too, how this passage dealing with the Lord's piercing is repeated every liturgy during the preparation when the lamb, the amnos on the discos, is pierced, and then the wine and water are poured into the chalice. This time we will see the Lord buried, and then we will see what follows very soon afterward. After these things, this is verse 38 of chapter 19, after these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices in linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb, and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." Then Peter and the other disciple set out and went toward the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down to look in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple, who reached the tomb first, also went in, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not understand the scripture, that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and another at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he had said these things to her. All right. So again, I'm going to give credit to Father Stephen DeYoung, because I've been listening to his podcast on the Gospel of John, and he has a lot of helpful thoughts. That's the whole counsel of God, if anyone wants to hear it from the real person and not just digested by me. So first, we have to note, although it's easy for us to criticize Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus because they've kept their faithfulness, their following of the Lord secret all this time, but now when there's no more hope, now when it's too late, as you would think, now when any chance that Jesus is indeed the Messiah who will raise a war against the Romans and all of these things appears to be dead, because Jesus is dead, and that's what happens to false messiahs. This is where the two of them show their love and their faithfulness in the face of a very real threat of death, because Jesus was crucified with the accusation of being King of the Jews, of being a false Messiah. So what do you do with the followers of false messiahs? Well, you kill them too, just to make sure. But they ask to bury him, and Pilate allows it. And the two of them declare themselves to be faithful disciples of a dead man, as far as they can tell. That's a remarkable degree of faithfulness and of boldness. Better late than never. And may all of us imitate and be like, learn to imitate them. So, I want to note the gap that's in that's in the story here. In chapter 19, verse 42, it says clearly, now it's the Jewish day of preparation, and then on the first verse of chapter 20, the very next verse, early on the first day of the week. So John ostentatiously, visibly, purposely skips over and says nothing at all about the seventh day of the week, the Sabbath day, the last day. And by ostentatiously omitting it, he shows clearly the rest that God has entered into, the perfect fulfillment of the Sabbath day rest that is described in the book of Genesis, that is commanded to God's people throughout the Torah, and that the Pharisees kept on beating Jesus over the head with. Now he observes and fulfills the Sabbath. Now he rests. But even in his rest, he is saving us because he goes down into Hades. So anyway, I think that conspicuous, ostentatious silence about what happens on the seventh day is important. And last of all, this is, I think, mine. I love this little tidbit because it shows something of, I'm not going to say Jesus' personality, because anytime we start speculating about the personality of God, we're in dangerous territory. But the Lord reveals something of himself to us, even though he's not present in this scene. But the disciples go to the tomb, and they find the linen wrappings in which the Lord's body had been wrapped, left in the tomb, and they find the cloth that had been on Jesus' head set aside from the other things. Which means we're invited to have this picture of the Lord rising from the dead, that he resumes his body. He assumes, well, he rises. He comes. See, all of these words don't feel quite right. The Lord returns to life, except he is life. So you see the problem here. But when the Lord rises from the dead, he puts aside the linen garments that had wrapped his corpse. He doesn't need them. He's not naked. We see he's clearly, anyway. But the thing on his head, he takes it and he sets it aside. Rolled up. Neat. This is the part where we basically, yes, I'm saying, this is where Jesus shows us that folding laundry is a good and worthwhile thing to do. Even if you're never going to use it again, he still rolls it up neatly and sets it aside as a sign that he comes to set all things in order, perhaps, as a sign of rightness and truth. But whatever's going on, I find that just, it leaps out to me as very striking to me. The first thing Jesus did after he rose from the dead, he folded his laundry. Or we could say he made his bed. Either way, the point stands. He set the space in which he rose in order. So, anyway, and now he sets all things in order, even us. So, Kali Anastasi is the last time I'll say that here. Next time it will be that other thing that we say. So, God bless you all. See you next week.